How does such a positive guy become an on-screen heel?
I was quiet, reserved in the back, but when it was time to go out there and go, like I've always been able to flip that switch and just turn it on. Yes, I was breaking world records and American records and national records and all this stuff and this weightlifting stuff. Honestly, it's the energy that I'm getting from the crowd. But being able to break this mental state of I'm not good enough, totally now as an older man, I'm realizing.
How does such a positive guy become an on-screen heel?
You know, at the end of the day, we all have a bad side to us, per se. We all have that monster locked inside of us, and it's an opportunity for me to get it out, because there's things that upset you throughout the day in your life that you got to bottle up and deal with. Well, when I'm in that squared circle, I get to get rid of it, and unfortunately, these hands get a hold of some other poor soul, and they're on the receiving end of it.
What switches in the ring?
So I've been asked that before, and honestly, I'm not really sure. So when I was competing in World's Strongest Man, it was kind of the same way. I was quiet, reserved in the back, but when it was time to go out there and go, like I've always been able to flip that switch and just turn it on. So I'm carrying that over because in World's Strongest Man, competing in that's where I found my confidence in life. I was this sheltered, bullied, overweight kid that got picked on and was told by teachers in my grade schools and high school that I was never going to amount to anything. And I started to believe that when you hear it over and over and over, those actions, those words start to weigh on you. And I started doing bad things that I shouldn't have done while I was learning as a kid. But when I found the group of guys that I started training with and got involved in strongman, and then I started being successful at it, I won my very first competition and started to instill this confidence in me that I never had in my entire life, because all of a sudden I was good enough. I was winning these contests. People were starting to praise me for what I was doing, and being able to carry that over onto this humongous platform now that is being a WWE superstar. I think that's what it really is just knowing that I still have people to prove wrong. I'm one of those human beings that I dare you to bet against me, because I'm going to do everything I can to prove you wrong. I continue to go out there and do that every time I step foot in that squared circle. So in all honesty, it's just, I'm living a dream.
Yeah, that's what it seems like from the outside. When you're growing up watching wrestling as a kid, like, wrestlers are your superheroes in so many ways. Which is why when you're being this vulnerable and talking about what you went through and talking about your confidence issues, which honestly every single guy goes through at least, or I'd even go as far as saying every single human goes through at every point in their life. You have a point where you kind of shed off that lack of self-confidence. But someone would assume that you, Braun Strowman, with your size, your voice, your physique, all that, doesn't have any confidence issues at all.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. That's what I said. You can't always judge a book by its cover. You never know what somebody's dealing with and things like that inside. So that's why I convey my message to believe in yourself, and don't listen to these doubters and these negative people. Find people in your circle that are going to lift you up, because life is so short. Why focus on all this negativity when there's so much positivity in the world, and just gravitate towards that and then push all that other crap out of the way?
Yeah. Little kind of stupid question, but this is something I've always wondered. When you're wrestling in the ring, what energy are you sharing with the crowd?
Honestly, it's the energy that I'm getting from the crowd. So that's the whole thing of being out there. And I found that when I was competing in World's Strongest Man competitions, the louder the crowd got, the stronger I was. So I find that as well inside the wrestling ring. The louder that crowd is, the crazier I am, the more willing I am to put my body and my health at risk, because I know that they're caught up in the moment, and my job is to do exactly that.
Okay. What did the World's Strongest Man phase change in you, other than the obvious physical strength stuff?
Physical strength, mental strength. Mental strength, I feel like, honestly, more so than my physical strength, which the things I did physically were unbelievable, but being able to break this mental state of I'm not good enough was one of the biggest things that I totally now, as an older man, I'm realizing when I was going through this, like, yes, I was breaking world records and American records and national records and all this stuff and this weightlifting stuff, but really what I hold near and dear to that was being able to turn into the man that I am now today.
Which is what?
A positive influence, or what you said, a superhero, which I don't consider myself that, but hearing and seeing from children that are having disabilities or having illnesses, and they're going in to have surgeries, and as they're going under anesthesia, they're holding my action figure. They're listening to my theme songs as they're going, because they've seen Braun Strowman overcome so much adversity in his wrestling career that if Braun Strowman can survive a car accident, I can go through this surgery. And that's what, for me and so many of the WWE superstars, that's what we do all this for. Like, people don't understand those 15 minutes that we're in the ring. Wrestling, that's really the smallest part of what it is to be a WWE superstar. It's these sit-down interviews, it's the Make-A-Wishes, it's the children's hospital visits, it's all the stuff that we do for our fans, and that, you know, reciprocates back to us, because at the end of the day, people are spending their hard-earned money, they're spending their time and giving their appreciation for what we do, so it's the least that I can do to give them some back.
Why do you think India is so drawn to wrestling? Like, what do you make of that?
It's awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, it's awesome. The wrestling, there's something special to it. And being like with WWE, we have every walk of life you could ever imagine as far as superstars. So it's a total product that everyone can watch. It's family friendly, like you just said. Your family comes together with it. You find a character that's something that's inside of you, or something that you aspire to be, and then you gravitate to it. You sink your hooks into it. You invest your emotions into that character.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the wrestling world in general, a little bit about the behind the scenes stuff. What was your first important conversation with Vince McMahon like about your future?
Oh man, so
did you give him ideas? Did he give you ideas? What was that?
I'll tell you the very first thing that I remember Vince saying to me that stuck with me, and still to this day, he goes, "I know you don't know much about what's going on in this ring, but we're going to learn on the road, because I see something in you."
What do you think he saw?
I don't know. My size, my drive, my unwillingness to give up. And I think we have a lot of relations with Vince, because backstory, Vince grew up in a small town of North Carolina. Family didn't have a lot. Same thing with my story and things like that. And I think it's something that we almost had a kindling of similarities. So he saw something in me, and he believed in me, and he took me to the deep end of the pool and kicked me in the butt and said sink or swim, and 10 years later I'm still doggy paddling.
Okay, you know how you get better with every wrestling match? You get better with every podcast as well. So what improves with podcasting is your observational abilities, because I've seen so many human beings, I can kind of tell pretty quickly what a human being is made up of. So can I tell you what I believe he saw in you? And I might be totally wrong, but I want to have a shot at it. If someone interacts with you, it's very clear, very quick that you're a very well-raised guy. I don't know if you're getting one of
Yep.
Like your childhood still has a big influence on you right now.
My mother and father are very influential in my life.
Yeah.
My father's my superhero, and my mom is one of the strongest human beings I've ever met.
Yeah. It comes through the way you interact with everyone, the way you interact with other human beings. Like being this guy, and I know that you walk around with this little tag of maybe people looking at you as intimidating, but on the inside, you're a kid just like the rest of us, and that it's really alive, man. So this is not at all the end of the podcast. It seems like something at the end, but when I said that it's great having you in my house, it was for hosting Braun Strowman in my house, but it was more so about getting to see you firsthand and seeing what a gentle person you are. So that openness and that niceness is the base of what I think Vince McMahon saw, other than the size, the strength, the personality, and all the sexy stuff.
Sexy and Braun Strowman in the same sentence.